Ladies, thank you so much for having me here this morning. I am really excited about spending some time with you, especially talking about a subject that is very near and dear to me because anytime that I teach anything, it's because for the most part, I've had to go through the steps or the process, or I'm in it, or I have to go and revisit it. So today, the topic that we're going to be talking about is something that I absolutely love. So I want to just say that usually I love doing public speaking and I love training when it's one-to-one or sorry, in a group with a group of people where I see your lovely faces and you're right there with me. So this is a different kind of a platform. And what's going to help me the most is if you have questions or if you have comments, please make sure that you comment below in the chat. And I do have access to that, so I'm very pleased with that as well. Okay, so having said that, I want to start by asking you a few questions, and I would love your involvement. I'd like to see, first of all, a show of hands, or actually, I can't see everybody with a show of hands, so on the chat, please. How many of you would love to have a clear direction for your life? One where you would never, ever have to doubt the path for your life. If you could just write down on the chat, I want to know how many of you would love that. Absolutely, we've got yes, yes, of course. Of course, right? Yeah, exactly. I totally get it. And let me ask you another question with that. What would that do for you? If you had the opportunity to have a clear direction for your life, what would that do for you? Please write it down in the chat. Someone says they just love the surprise factor. Yes, clarity and peace for sure. Direction, which is something that most of us need. Clear up of our brain space. Yes, easier to plan for my family. Thank you so much. Absolutely. Is there anything else? What would it do for you if you had a clear direction for your life and you would never ever have to doubt that path for yourselves again? Anybody else that would like to share? Okay, we can come back to it. Okay, it makes achieving future goals that much easier, for sure. Now, the interesting part of it is that instead, many of us live our lives feeling with an ever slight sense of directionless and perhaps feeling a little lost and unclear about life and the future. And primarily that's because we have so many changes and transitions, or just simply life that can leave us feeling a little bit less certain about our future. And I know because I've been there before. So let me ask you another question. When you are feeling unsure about your future, how does that affect you? And I'd like you to think about, how does that affect you personally? For me, I'm going to be wide open here and just vulnerable and say that whenever I am unclear about my future, I start to immediately doubt myself, and my confidence can plummet very quickly. So I'd like to know for you, what does that do for you when you are not feeling clear about your life or your future? If you can write that down on your chat. Lack of confidence. Anxiety, of course. There is confusion. Oh, I love what Jessica has to say. My house falls apart, things are messy, I feel stressed and drained of energy. Yes, for sure. Kelsey says self-doubt. Julia says I need to seek opportunities at that point. Yes. Rosalind, increased stress levels. Tasha says I doubt my abilities and my self-confidence goes down. I'm stressed and anxious. Oh my gosh, absolutely. I resonate with everything that you are saying, ladies. Let me say something here. Today, we're going to be talking about vision. And you have so graciously already mentioned and you've opened up yourself to saying what happens with you when you don't have this clear vision. Now, let me ask you one more question, because vision is extremely important when it comes to everything in life, but even it becomes even more crucial for those of us who spend a great majority of our lives focused on our professional life. So how many of you work at a company or own your own business where the vision is so clear that you live out that vision? And it's so clear that you know it. And if that's you, if you can just put down on the chat, yes, that's me. And then if those of you that know that vision, if you can write out that vision, that would be awesome for us to see what you've come up with in terms of your direct future and where you're going to land. Okay, it could be, I'm not getting any results here, so it could be that I'm going to make the assumption that so far we don't have very many or any of us who work or have a business that's got a clear vision. Okay, you're still working on your self-employed. Excellent. All right, thank you so much, ladies. Let's proceed here. Let me just say this. Ladies, I can get lost. And what I mean by that is that I have a terrible sense of orientation. If you give me directions, you'd best be giving me a whole bunch of landmarks, and you can never say to me north, east, west, south, because I don't understand that. For me, I'm looking at you, that's north. If I turn this way, it's north. If I look this way, it's north. So I have a terrible sense of direction. It's best for you to always say to me, make a left or make a right. That works for me. So you can imagine how delighted I was when I started to use a GPS. My life changed for the better. I no longer got lost. I know where I'm supposed to go, and I get there. And yes, sometimes I can take a wrong turn. For sure, I can take a wrong turn. Sometimes there are detours. Sometimes there are roadblocks, unexpected delays. But you know what? My GPS gets me eventually to where I want to go, and I can trust in it. As long as I give it the right address, it takes me there. But it needs an address. It needs that landing place. It needs to know where it's taking me, so that I and the passengers that come along with me that are in the vehicle, they know that I will take them where we need to, well and safe. And I gotta say that in life, each one of us need to know where we're going. We need to know where we're heading. We need to know what's the target, because if we don't know where we're going, we're going to have a very difficult time finding our way. When we're unclear of our destination, we'll end up in our vehicle, and I've done this, where I'm driving from here and there, just driving, but not knowing where I'm heading, perhaps making far more stops than expected. And that slows down our progress. We end up also in places that we never anticipated. And we're really not reaching our destination because, again, we don't know it. That, being in that space, leads us to an incredible amount of stress, as many of you have already stated, an incredible amount of uncertainty. And what's the most frustrating for me is that I end up in times of an enormous amount of indecision. And then we don't act. Then we're too fearful to act, as a matter of fact. In that space, we become lost. And unfortunately, we can remain lost in that space for very long periods of time. So vision is like a GPS. Actually, I've got down here, vision is like your life's GPS. Once we know where we're going, it's smooth sailing, ladies. It gets us to where we want to go. When we have a vision of where we're going, we may still, and let me say this, we may still encounter the detours and the roadblocks and the bumpy roads and things we didn't expect, and even delays, but eventually we'll get to where we intended. We may have to recalculate, we may have to recenter, but we'll get there. The GPS will always redirect and get us to where we want to go. And that's how vision works. In my life, I have three visions. I have a vision for my personal life, I have a vision for my professional life, and I have a vision for my business. Today, I am going to concentrate on business and company vision, but please, I want you to know that everything that I say during our time together, even though I'm concentrating on business and company, everything applies fully and literally to our own personal lives. So please keep that in mind. I want to say that I can't tell you the countless number of people that I've talked to and worked with over the years that own their own businesses or work for very reputable companies who have no idea of what that vision for that business or that company is. And as a matter of fact, I would say this: many companies and businesses do not even have a vision. How many of you are in that same boat? Please, if you can write down in the chat that you're in that same boat, where you either work for a business or a company or own a business, but you don't know what the vision is. If you can just write it down, just say me, whatever. I'd love to see who we're dealing with. I'd love to know that. Company has changed strategy but failed to communicate the new vision. Thank you. Thank you very much. Joanne, me, very good. Anybody else who does not know what the vision is of the company or the business that you're working for is? Anybody? Okay. So, me, work in progress. Thank you. So now that we have a little bit more clarity on how important it is to have an endpoint or a last stop, for lack of a better word, that we're aiming for, can you imagine yourselves living, first of all, personally without a vision, or working in a company that operates with no vision and end, or even worse, as Tasha has mentioned here, working with one that has a vision, but that vision is written down someplace and it's somewhere. It's probably archived in some kind of a file that never gets shown to the public or anybody else. That can be extremely complicated and very confusing for people. And it's no wonder, ladies, that over the years, I've heard stories of leaders and managers especially that have become tired and bored of the same old, that experience difficulty getting their teams to feel motivated. And although they're doing their very best, they can find it so trying to get their people on the same page or show enthusiasm or be engaged. It can be so challenging to keep momentum going without a vision. Because let me be so bold to say this: when there is no vision, when there is no destination point, when people do not have a cause to work towards, one that will make them feel like they are making a difference, then they tend to disengage. They tend to become complacent very quickly. And when your team players get to this point, you can bet they're really only giving a very small portion of what they're really capable of. And that, ladies, for me, is a tragedy. That is an absolute waste of resources, and it's heartbreaking. Likewise, for business owners, we can be, when we don't have a vision, we can be busying ourselves with a number of tasks and projects that give us the illusion that we're heading in the right direction, but we may be far from where we're meant to be. Not having a destination, not having a target that we can resourcefully and wisely and innovatively reach, well, we run the risk of losing sight of what's important and of what's significant, and we may end up compromising our own standards. And when that happens, we and or our employees will undeniably encounter an ever increasing sense and feeling of unhappiness, disengagement, lack of productivity, little enthusiasm, and energy. And at that point, when we've reached that point, work unfortunately becomes a place where we go to rather than the place where we can make a difference. Let me make this very clear. An organization, a company, a business, and especially our homes can only thrive, grow, excel to the degree of commitment and involvement. That's the buy-in from every person that's a part of it. So charting that course for our lives is a task for the brave of heart. And when it comes to our professional lives, while leading and managing teams of people, instilling and living out our vision so that others can jump on board, getting them excited of where we're heading is exactly what is required of us as leaders. And allow me to emphasize this. Leadership is not necessarily only position or title, as many of us have been programmed to believe. And I'd like you to remember and to consider any of the following very seriously. If you are influencing the lives of people around you, if you are making a difference for the people around you, if you are helping to make the lives of the people you live with or work with easier so that they can do what they need to do better, then you are a leader. If you are doing any of these, never see yourself as anything less than a leader. And leadership requires us to do two things, to master two things successfully. And the first one is that we lead our lives extremely well. That's the first thing it asks of us if we are leaders. But the second thing is that we become skillful experts as we lead the lives of others. And we cannot lead the lives of others without a vision. We must know the destination. We have to know where we're going to land. We must know where we're going and have that trip envisioned, instilled, impressed on our minds as we lead the way. Otherwise, if we don't know where we're going, why would we expect anybody else to follow us willingly? And I'm talking willingly. Why would we expect anybody else to follow us? So, but you see, that's exactly the problem, is that oftentimes we don't know where we're going. We know the tasks for the day. We may know the projects for the month. We may even know the undertakings for the year, but where are they leading us towards? We get up in the morning, we fix ourselves breakfast, we get everybody else ready for the day, we carry on with our day, and then we do the same thing the next day, and then the next day, and then the next day, and then suddenly life has become a routine without a destination, and millions of lives, millions of people live their lives like that. And I know because I did. All of us land somewhere eventually. Somewhere is way too vague. Wouldn't it be better for us to land in a place of our choosing and get there intentionally, on purpose? Where do you want to land? That's the question we have to ask. What is the vision that you have for your life? What is the vision for your company, for your business, so that professionally and personally, it will propel us and ignite us. It keeps the rhythm going. Place us on the right track, on course for ourselves and for the people that we lead. We need vision so that we are able to create momentum, engagement, excitement, innovation. And so that we know that we're making the right choices. And here's the other part, ladies, and please remember this. We need vision because that way we create less resistance. And we need less resistance for change, because that is the one thing that is inevitable in life, personally and professionally, change. But all that is possible with vision. On a personal level, when we have vision for our lives, we're able to wake up every morning knowing that the investment that we're making for our families, everything that we sacrificially, tirelessly, fiercely devote ourselves to for each one of our loved ones, is empowering them so that they too can land exactly where they need to in this beautiful life. We're able to lead our families well beyond the regular routine because we are grounded and we know where we are taking them. And our children respond better because they also know where we're heading as a family. And in the process, we teach them to develop their own personal vision so that they can be the best that they can in this beautiful planet that we've been invited to live in. So, what you need to know. Vision is a clear mental picture of the future. And here's the other thing. Vision always answers the question, where? And something that I want you to remember is that vision cannot be confused with purpose. Purpose answers the question, why? Whereas vision answers the question, where? Neither can it be confused with reaching our goals. Vision is not goals, and vision is not strategy. Strategy answers the question, how? But vision is not that. So I want to say this. 2 years ago, I actually gave up the comfort and security of having a regular paycheck. And I started Alpha and Omega Strategies. And I have to be honest and say that although I knew without a doubt the why for my business, my purpose, I still felt lost. Knowing my purpose was not enough because, like any other business owner, the learning curve was enormous. The uncertainty was overwhelming, and sales, which wasn't my biggest purpose, although let me be very straightforward here, it is important, but it wasn't the purpose for my business. Well, it suddenly, slowly but surely became the big overarching purpose. And when that took over, and it took over quite quickly, I lost focus. And I began to feel very unclear about my business and my role with it. I knew that I had to find the vision for Alpha and Omega Strategies because one of the focuses that I have with my business is working with businesses, training and coaching their executives and leaders to design or redesign their visions, and then to know how to cast it to their people. And yet, I didn't have one. Where did I want to take my business? Where did I see myself landing? I worked on that for about a month, answering some of the questions that I'm going to be asking you shortly. So here's the vision that I came up with Alpha and Omega Strategies. Alpha and Omega Strategies is a movement of awakened leaders worth following. It's simple. That's where I'm landing. That's where I'm heading. A movement of awakened leaders worth following. Everything that I do, ladies, revolves around leadership. It revolves around awakening leaders, creating a movement of awakened leaders that are worth following. My gosh, that tiny, small phrase sums up everything that I stand for in my business, and everything that I do filters through that. I ask for every project, anything that I do, I ask myself, is this getting me closer to my vision? And if not, I don't take it on. So why do you need to know this? There are two reasons. The first one, because leaders always have a vision of where they're going. As leaders, we must. And the reason for that is because leadership is about moving people from where they are to a place where they will be better. That's why you need to know this. I'd like to propose a few questions to get you started on the search. And let me remind you, this part of vision, it's not a quick process, and it requires an incredible amount of deep reflection. It demands intense honesty and an incessant curiosity about yourself. We cannot rush it. But the reason why we need to have it is because once we have it, once we land our vision, it changes everything. Suddenly, life opens up to you unexpectedly. Your vision becomes sharp. Your focus becomes sharp. You develop heightened confidence. Your opportunities become limitless. You create bigger and better results. And most importantly, you have a clarifying force for all of your decisions, all the decisions that you make. On the home front, it helps you to prioritize. It empowers you to see your own leadership role in the home front, and it creates less resistance, and it prevents resentment. So ladies, here's what I would like us to do. I'm going to be presenting you the 5 questions that I would like you to work on, and I'm going to give you some time to answer these questions for yourselves. And then I'm hoping that we have enough time to then get together in breakout rooms and have you discuss what you have come up with, okay? So one of the first questions that I would like you to consider is this. Let's see. Question number 1 is, what is the impact that you want to have? And I love this quote. If you think you're too small to have an impact, try going to bed with a mosquito in the room. I love that. I love that. Okay, so think about, this is such a huge and important question, because I'd like you to think about it in terms of you personally, as well as the impact that you want to have with your company or your business. Is it limited to your city, to the province, nationally? Is it globally? But for you personally, what impact do you want to make? I think that's the bigger question. What impact do you want to make? And here's something that I would like to challenge you with, ladies. What do you want people to say about you? And I'm asking you to think really big, ladies. Oftentimes as women, we do not allow ourselves to think big. Let me say this, whenever I have asked this same question to men, they are unapologetic. They do not stop. They do not limit themselves. They do not put boundaries. They think big. They allow themselves to think big. And that's what I'm asking of you. Far too often, we focus on slights and missed opportunities instead of looking at what lies ahead for us. I had to think much bigger for myself. I had to. And at first, it was very uncomfortable, but I had to. I went big. And what I propose is that you put your name down first. So it would be Joanne, the. Ednali, the. Tasha, the. Jessica, the. So let me give you an example of what I did. For myself, I said Jacqueline, the life and business change shaker and awakening leader. I had to think big because I want to see myself that way. And as I see myself that way, that's how I will start acting. That's how I will start functioning. And I want others to see the impact that I make in their lives in that way. So I want to challenge you and say, please think big. And I'm going to give you about a minute to work on that, if that's okay. So let's start right now. Please think big. And again, at the end of answering these questions, we're going to see if we can spend some time in breakout rooms. So I'm going to give you a minute, ladies. Please go for it. Questions, feel free to add it to the chat. I would love to know how you managed with that. I don't need you to put your answers, but I would love you to say, was it challenging for you to do that? And I know most likely you didn't come close to doing that. Perhaps, maybe some of you did. I know it was a challenge for me, but I'd like to know on a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being extremely difficult to 1 being very simple, where were you at? If you can put that down on your chat, on the chat, please. Yes, challenging. Thank you. Do you know what made it? Thank you. Oh, I like what Jessica says. I need better vocabulary. Yes. Ashley said that I got a number 6. Challenging, 8 for sure. Thank you. 7, thank you. I think it is so important that we begin to see ourselves however we want to see ourselves, however we want people to feel the impact of what we bring to the table, that we begin to see ourselves at that level. And for that to happen, you've got to think big, step out of what is comfortable and familiar, and start addressing and seeing yourselves with that absolute incredible impact and potential. So thank you for doing that. The next question that I'd like you to answer is, who is it that you want to impact? I love what Jane Goodall says here. You cannot get through a single day without having an impact on the world around you. What you do makes a difference, and you have to decide what kind of difference you want to make. So who is it that you want to impact? The point of this question is to help you unleash your deep, perhaps even that hushed aspiration that you've never told anybody, help you to see that level, that potential that you want to achieve. So for me, again, I had to think big. And again, I address myself here, not so that I can brag or anything of that sort. Please understand that is not my intent. I humbly say this to you so that it ignites something within you. I humbly say this so that it can impassion and fuel you to say, you know what? Dang, I can do this. I want to say, who are the people that I want to impact? And for me, I thought executive leaders for sure. I wanted to impact upcoming and new leaders and leaders whose potential has not been discovered yet. So please think about, I'm going to give you a minute here to think about, who are the people you want to impact? Let's move on. Let's move on now to question number 3. What is the one thing that you want to create right now that should exist, but doesn't? That should exist, ought to exist, but doesn't. And here, what you're doing is you're addressing the problem that exists right now and the solution that you want to bring. And I know that sometimes, again, we minimize our potential to solve problems. I want to talk about an example of this is Alicia Woods. She's the founder of Cover Gals. And this Canadian woman, she ended up landing a deal with Dragon's Den. She started actually working in the mining industry as a young woman, and she found herself wondering, why is it with so many women joining unconventional careers like mining, why did they have to wear clothing that's designed only for male body types? And the answer to that was because there was no other choice. And she was like, no way. This can't be. This cannot be. We have to create something that is not existent right now, but that ought to exist and should exist. And so she started up Cover Gals, and it is something that's just continued to grow. So for me, ladies, as I thought about Alpha and Omega strategies again, and I say this just to get your mind thinking and flowing. For me, I was tired of the stories of bad bosses. I was tired of those stories. I was tired of them. I could no longer handle another story of bad bosses. My solution was then I was going to train and coach leaders and upcoming leaders and promising leaders so that their businesses and companies no longer had employees that were disengaged and unhappy and unproductive, because why would any employee want to give their very best to a company when they don't like them, when they don't trust them, or when they don't feel like they're liked or trusted in? So I'm going to give you a minute here, ladies, again, to think about what is it that you want to create right now that should exist, ought to exist, but doesn't exist. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. And again, ladies, I understand that for many of you, this is way too hard. How do I do this? But remember, you are not answering these questions or solving or finding the full answer to these questions during this time. This is just to get you going, to get you thinking about it, because remember, it took me a month to think about what it was that I wanted for Alpha and Omega strategies. So It is going to take a while. And sometimes the company that you're working with already has a vision. But then what do you want as a vision for your team if you're leading teams? You know, like we can create visions that we can impart to the people that we're working for and working with. Pardon. Okay, question number 4. Here it is. What is sacred to you? This one I found, of all of the questions that I had, this one was probably the hardest one for me. And it's most likely because this is about discovering about yourself something that you've never spoken forth and that has been maybe dormant in your souls, in your spirit, in your life. This one took the longest time. I'm not sure. I'm going to leave this one for you to take with you. But let me say this. In the process of trying to figure this out for myself, I ended up finding out something about myself that I kind of feared, but at the same time, that was extremely sacred for me. And it was the fact that I do not want to be forgotten. I do not want to be forgotten. In other words, I don't want, after my generation, my grandkids, I don't want my grandkids to be like, okay, that's it. I was just telling somebody that my daughter came to me and she said to me, Mom, did you know that we die 2 deaths? The first one is when we stop living here in this world, we just stop. But the second one is when the last person standing that has any memories of you dies. And I thought, I don't want that. I don't want to be forgotten. So as I thought about where do I want to land in my personal life? Where do I want to go? What is it? I realized that what I want to create, what I want to leave this world with, is an intergenerational legacy. And this is my personal vision. It's an intergenerational legacy of exquisite love and empowering leadership. An intergenerational legacy of exquisite love and empowering leadership, meaning that anything that I do for my family, I realize that my family is so important to me. It's so sacred. My legacy is so sacred to me that I don't want it just to go. I want it to keep progressing and going on to the next generation, next generation, next generation. Even though I may not see it, I know that that's where I want to land. I want to provide for my family that opportunity, create for them that opportunity for them to learn what does it mean to love exquisitely, for them to learn what is it like to be empowering leaders worth following. That was what was most important to me. And so for my personal vision, that's what it became. And ladies, let me just say this. Everything that I do revolves around that. It's not just loving. It's exquisitely loving, which means taking and making the extra effort. And I always let them know, this is exquisite love. This is empowering leadership so that they can continue telling that to others. Question number 5. And I think that this one is another one that can be very difficult. And again, I want you to take this with you, is what is your definition of success? What is it? We must know that. We must unveil that. We must unearth it. All these 5 questions is what's going to help us as we create the vision of where we want to land. Because remember, what vision addresses is where. It's not the why, it's not the how, it's where we want to land. So, Tristina, are you there? I think we've got 15 minutes left. Okay. What do you think? Do you think that we've got time for breakout rooms, or do you want to leave why don't we, what do you think about having the floor open for any questions that there might be? And then we can go from there. What do you think?
I think it'd be best, Jacqueline, so that way anybody that's got any questions about what you've brought up can actually talk to you about it now.
Okay. All right.
Do that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So ladies, we've got another 15 minutes and I want to make sure that if you have any questions, feel free to either unmute yourself or Feel free to write it out on the chat.
I actually have a question myself.
Yes.
Jacqueline, have you ever done a vision board? Do you find that vision boards help you to actually declare what your vision for personal, business, and so forth is?
That's a great question. Yes, I have done vision boards. I have done vision boards. However, no, it has not. Because if you think about what I've just recently done, when I think about my personal vision and my professional vision, I have stated it in a statement. It's not a number of pictures of where I want to be in the future. That helps. Vision boards are fantastic for visualization. Don't get me wrong. They're great for visualization, but in terms of having a statement that you have, that you take with you, that focuses you on where you're going, that revolves, and that you live it. Because once you have a vision, you must live that vision. You model that vision. Vision boards do not create that for you. However, do they allow for visualization for the future, and are they purposeful that way? Absolutely.
I keep meaning to get one done. I just haven't worked on it. I need to have the vision to do a vision board.
Yes. Are there any other questions? I feel like I've said so much, or has it been clear for you, ladies? I'd love to know where you're at.
Hi, Jacqueline.
Hi, Joanne.
Just for everybody else, I've been working a little bit with Jacqueline through my role here at Sridas, so very familiar with her talk on vision and leadership. But I just wanted to ask you, once you've got your vision set, how do you go to the next steps? Is it small, focused, step by step, I guess, focus visions, or what do you call them? Or are those your goals? What do you do next?
Fantastic. Oh, I love that question, Joanne. A vision is the first step, right? The vision helps us to know where we're going, where we're landing, right? But then your vision must be empowered by a strategy. So yes, this is the first step. And whenever I'm working with a company or with individuals, that's exactly what I do, is I help them then think about the next steps for them. Because you know what? If you especially are working within a company, you need to have that strategy. And but also, aside from the strategy, part of being a leader requires that you don't keep that vision to yourself. It has to be something that is continually said and casted to your people so that they know it, they learn it, they live it as well. Thank you, Joanne, for that great question.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Oh, this is a great question from Rosalind. Do you always keep personal and business visions separate, or do you find they might overlap? Excellent question, Rosalind. It depends. So for instance, you might be, okay. I believe that it is so important to have your own personal vision in place and a professional vision in place because of this. First of all, let me say this, because as you begin to think about where you want to land professionally, let's say that you apply to a company, you must know what that vision is for that company so that your professional and personal vision aligns with that company. That way you're not only in alignment, but then you'll feel like you're contributing, you're belonging, you're part of something that also helps you establish and get closer to your own vision. If that makes any difference, if that makes any sense. Now, can your personal vision and professional vision overlap? Absolutely. So when I say my Alpha and Omega Strategies vision is a movement of awakened leaders worth following, but my personal is an intergenerational legacy of exquisite love, and empowered leadership. That empowered leadership is it overlaps on both ends, right? Because if you're going to have empowering leadership, then you're also going to be the type of leader that is worth following. So yes, they can certainly overlap. Very true. Yes, thank you. Anybody else? I know that this has been a lot of information, and I just want to say this. I would like to offer all of you, if any one of you, I would like to offer you to book a 20-minute complimentary session with me. My email to book that is Jacqueline Almeida, J Almeida at Alpha and Omega Strategies. And please note that there's a double A in Alpha and, or you can call me to set up an appointment, because I know that this is something that we need to continue working on. And I know that 20 minutes seems like it's not enough time, but it's amazing how much you can fit in 20 minutes. That's for sure. But I have absolutely loved it. And if there are no further questions, it's too bad we didn't have enough time to do breakout rooms, because I would have loved to see what you came out with, ladies. However, like I said, I would love to interact further with you, ladies. So feel free to book that 20-minute complimentary session. It would be fabulous to get to know you. If nothing else, let's network, right? Let's do this for 20 minutes. That would be so good. And again, if you have any questions after our time together, feel free to shoot that question to me. You can also find me on Instagram, Alpha Omega Strategies, or LinkedIn as Jacqueline Almeida, or even Facebook, Alpha and Omega Strategies. I would love the opportunity to get to know you more, ladies. So please, I want to make sure that you take advantage of this opportunity, because I would love to know you.
There are a few more questions,
Yes.
Jacqueline. We have from Aaron and from Amy yet too, please.
Which one should I work on first, personal or business? Oh my gosh. Let me say this. It really doesn't matter, because one will lead to the other. Personally, I started off with Alpha and Omega Strategies because it was urgent. I had my business and I needed to find that professional vision before I went any further. And then once I got that, it inspired me, and I had a better perspective and picture of how to create my own personal one. And I love my personal one as well because of that. So it really doesn't matter. Start with one. It doesn't matter. You'll see that somehow you'll have the inspiration of formulating your other one as well. Thank you, Anna.
And we have Aaron also.
Oh, what does it? What suggestions do you have when personal and business overlap, but they are contradictory in their execution? Oh my goodness. Okay, I love it. Okay, let me reread that, Aaron. What suggestions do you have when personal and business overlap, but they are contradictory in their execution or strategy? The how. Something that I would say, Aaron, we have to remember that whatever vision we have, whether our business or personal, one of the questions that was asked before is, can it overlap? And yes, it can overlap, but let me say this, the reason why it overlaps, Aaron, is because it is empowered by values. If your strategies are contradictory, I would suggest that it could be because you might see yourself as a leader, the values that you have as a leader different than the values that you have personally. And if I may say this, I really am a firm believer that we need to integrate leadership, where it brings the personal and the professional together. I'm hoping that I have understood your question correctly. And if not, please feel free to book that 20-minute appointment, because I'd love to talk further with you about that. Thank you. I'm hoping that that has helped somewhat. Anybody else? Should you have your values defined before your vision or after, or does it matter? Excellent questions. So one of the things that I also offer in my coaching is helping you understand values, because values are complicated. The majority of value seeking that's out there, I don't find it specific enough. I believe that they kind of work together. As you do your vision, all of a sudden you see your values more clearly. As you do your values, you see your vision more clearly. So it's something that's, again, integrative. They work side by side to strengthen. Again, values are there to strengthen your vision. I find that if you know you're already set and you know your values, it will help you figure out your vision. Not easier, but with less complications. With less complications. Thank you. You're very welcome. You are very welcome. And I appreciate every one of you ladies. Thank you.